It's the Smut Pod Show. The Smut Pod Show. The Smut Pod Show. Welcome to smutpod.com show.
Hi folks, I'm not sure if I did a recording just now of why I won't be called sex work, so I don't know how well that's turned out. If it sounds garbage I won't upload it, I'll just redo it later. So if you can't find it, it just means I've not recorded it correctly or whatever. Anyway, this one's not sure what I'll call it, but it's mainly about the feminist movement, left-wingers and such as Gail Dines, who are anti the old porn there. Right, let's break this down. First thing to do, and I've always said this, is if you ever notice the old the ones who are class themselves as feminists tend to always be middle class, probably always middle class. I've never really found anyone yet who's working class who's a feminist. The group tends to be mainly white, actually, who claim to represent all women and believe in equality and all this, which is not true. You can see it over and over. They use this equality thing as a way to pretend that they're the correct side of thought and order, which they're not. Now, one of the things you'll notice when it comes to porn is, on average, those who do porn aren't always middle class. There are quite a few who are middle class, but they tend to be working class. But they significantly earn money now, and good money. I mean, obviously, if you read, such as OnlyFans is pulling in for some models £1 million a month or whatnot. And that is absolutely hideous to the old left-wingers and the feminists. God, my head's gone today. And why is that? Well, first of all, they enjoy seeing the working classes as a charity case and hate them doing any successful. That's why they love socialism, because, you know, they like to hand out the old money and keep everyone in poverty, pay girls to keep getting pregnant, give them houses, just in order so that they never actually want to go out and get a career, do well, move next door to them. They can spend their lives seeing the working class as charity, which is what they do. It's why the working classes struggle, because a lot of times they've no option but to stay on the benefits they keep getting. I mean, in the UK, you're paid to get sick, and what happens is people end up sicker and sicker, because the more sick you are, the more money you get. And who's going to then go out and get a job when it's less money? You're trapped. It's a way of trapping people into this charity system that the middle classes love. So rather than promoting fat women are doing what they want with their bodies and making money, which is actually what you would do in an equal society, to say, I might not agree with you doing porn, it might be something I personally detest. It's fair enough. I mean, I don't like football, bores me. In fact, most sports do. They don't go around banning it. One then goes around telling women that they're wrong and scum and they're being abused. I mean, it's always, hang on, sorry, someone in front. It's a bit embarrassing subject, but it's always noticed the women that are the vulnerable victims. So they never mention gay porn, where it's all men. Who's the victim in that? Or BDSM, where women are beating men up. And they never mention the fact that quite a few women make porn. And if you look today, hang on, I just have to put this in pause. Hi folks, I think what I was up to, sorry, I'm just passing someone, was the fact that it contradicts the belief that you're into equality if you turn around and say other women can't do porn. It's also bizarre that the feminists will on one hand argue men are sexist by in the past telling women what to do, where, think, and yet they do exactly the same thing by telling women what to do, think, work. It's a slight contradiction, but it's not slight, it's 100% contradiction. It demonstrates how they're not into equality and basically they're just taught papa. But if you call yourself pretend that you're left wing and into equality when you're not, somehow people think that you're on the side of correctness when you're not. Oh God, here we go, passing more people. So again, I'll have to put everything on to pause for a bit. I'll cut so it might jump in sound any moment. Right folks, I think I'm okay to speak now. Just walking alongside the road. So I'm going to move now on to Gelda. I mean, a lot of this I might go into full detail later on. I'm just basically briefly, as quickly as I am, covering a few subjects. But the reason I cover Gail Downs is because she's usually the one who's dragged onto TV as this sort of expert. Now, Gail Downs has a degree, I believe, and a PhD from Manchester Uni in sociology. And often what people do is presume that because she's got a PhD, she's done this huge amount of research into porn. Now, from what I gather, she's done literally nothing. Most of the evidence seems to be made up. And you can see that in the videos because I've gone through many of her videos where she's usually talking to women who won't challenge her. And most don't really know if she's telling the truth or not. In the past I've known women tell me on Twitter and stuff. I mean, again, they might not be real, I can't guarantee they have been, but they've claimed they've been listened to her and they felt that what she was saying was rubbish. And one was quite upset because Gail Downs was stating that porn, well, in her mind she believes she was being told that people rape because of porn, but since she'd been raped years ago, she felt this was upsetting, and she didn't believe it was true. Which, I mean, the evidence does suggest that porn and rape are not connected. But you know, these kind of left-wingers don't care about facts, do they? They don't care if it upsets people. They're more interested in trying to shock people. So why should facts matter? And you can go through a lot of Gail Downs videos, and I've checked all the facts out. Most of them are incorrect. I think there's one of the recent ones. I mean, I've done blog posts, so I know the links, so that's where I can go into detail and I can back up what I've claimed. I think there was one where she claims that on the recent study, all the porn was violent or something. Now, when I looked at the study she quoted, it took me a while to find it. It turned out these were DVDs, and I don't think they were that recently viewed, and I think there was 100. But what they classed as violence was swear words, not beating women up. But you know, again, let's exaggerate. I mean, I think it was done by a feminist group just to try and shock people, this study. I mean, it does. One thing you'll find with Gail Downs is she seems to, never want to speak to anyone in porn unless they're going to say they were raped or molested or something. Anyone who says anything positive does not seem to be interviewed. Until any university research that states porn's correct, she seems to dismiss or not take notice of. Most of the research seems to come from left-wing religious groups, whatever. But still, you know, I mean, again, people believe she's factually correct because she's got a PhD. Which I find quite, I mean, she'll push that notion all the time. She'll keep telling you she's got a PhD just to reinforce that. She has to make you believe what she's saying is 100% correct, not biased, not wrong, no other research, nothing. So what you find is she tries to use shock. She tends not to really talk about porn. She'll start switching. She'll start off with porn and then talk about slavery or something. What's the latest one I think she uses? Where people are human trafficking, that's the old chap there. and she doesn't actually say porn is into human trafficking, but because she talks about one and then the other, it sounds like they're connected. Feel free to quote any firm ever in history that's been involved in human trafficking and a porn firm. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you don't even have to be that smart to think it wouldn't make sense for any firm to, because they just hire models. Why do you pay thousands of pounds to smuggle somebody to do a single porn shoot? Especially in America, where you need, and like England, you need a model ID, a model release form, ID, several of them, such as birth certificate, passport, blah blah blah, and on camera they state they haven't been molested and all this, and they can be investigated by the FBI in America quite easily because you've got to keep your records on track. So, you know, if any of these firms have been up to no good, it'll literally be seconds for them to be found out. So, sorry, please do not consider just because she talks about one subject it has any bearings on another. She usually does this. It's a bit like, I could talk about, I'll give you an example of the method she uses. I could talk about saying, I don't know, walking is bad for you. Now obviously it's not, but let's go something silly and say walking is bad for you. Then I'll say, oh yes, people who go to the shop and buy fish and chips and get quite overweight and die therefore, well, look at that, folks. I mean, okay, that's a bad example, to be honest. It's not very well put out. I mean, I'm just talking off my head here, but you've got to see that a lot of things she does it's sales techniques, what she does, rather than give facts. It's how I've seen people sell timeshares. She does a lot of shocking, doesn't really quote, well, she'll talk about research, but she won't actually give out the links in her speech on YouTube. I mean, she might do afterwards or have a bit of paper, but so far I've watched when you listen to the research she grabs, it's not exactly clear where it's coming from. You have to do a bit of Google searching, but eventually you find that, I mean, one of the old ones which even people in porn never question. Oh, here we go, people walking. Hi folks, I'm back again, just people walking past. I'm just going to finish quickly there. So, oh, by the way, one of the tactics Girl Dines does is she tries putting people down. She dehumanises people by calling those in porn as porny men or something. And it's because she just basically tries to put people down to prove a point, which, well, for somebody with a PhD, if that's her tactics, that's up to her. I mean, I've got a degree, and how she puts across her arguments, I would have never passed my degree course. I know they'd have kicked me straight off. So if that's what she wants to, I mean, I think she teaches, or did teach, well, you know, if that's the quality she teaches, that rather than using evidence and putting forward lots of points, her way must be to teach, because I presume that a lot of her pupils are female, to simply use insults. Well, good luck in getting a job with her degree. I don't think it'd be worth a bit if her presentations are the same as her teachings. But anyway, now I'm going to finish this off. Oh yeah, by the way, that's what I was going to say. One of the most amusing interviews where she fell on her face, and if you find it out, it was a few years ago. She went on to discuss porn, and she went on BBC Two, and she just rabbited on. Now, a lot of people said, gosh, isn't she abusive? Because she just came on, blah blah blah, and I think she was so used to doing a little speech in front of people who don't question her, that it looked quite shocking. Was one of the most amusing ways of, she did it to herself. The others didn't even need to be there interviewed. She literally made herself look terrible. But I think it's one of my favourite interviews from her, because often we find people just bring her on, they never question her, they presume because she's got a PhD she's 100% correct. So they let her just say whatever they want. Marvellous to see. I mean, she's anti-everything, including, I mean, her argument is 50 Shades of Grey, which was an incredibly successful book. It was just simply about abusing women, and women who bought it were incorrect or something. You know, I mean, this is how she goes. You know, you're not basically allowed to have a sex life unless Gail Dines says it's correct. So if women are into BDSM, then I presume that there's something wrong with them under Gail Dines' view. And by the way, she never seems to state that she's bothered about men in porn. So to say she's into equality seems to be only women she's interested in. But like a lot of left-wingers, they always never seem to care about the men, always females. But anyway, so to finish off, and this is one of the things I've always found intriguing, is a lot of people quote, when it comes to anti-porn, an old video, I think it's from the 50s. I'll try and find it. I might do a separate little video, because there's an intriguing anti-porn film, hang on, where where a lot of the facts, I'm not even sure from this film, they use it, I think they just basically made things up. So the quote, porn is a multi-million pound industry, and from that I think everyone even today quotes from that film, which is fascinating. I mean, it's actually quite a fascinating film for anybody, even if you're pro anti-porn, to watch, because you'll suddenly hear all the arguments from this 1950s film are still the ones used factually today, and even those in the porn industry never even realise they should question these facts, because they're bandied about so often that it's almost come as a belief that it must be true, and it never tends to be. I mean, not about today, you probably do have a multi-million pound industry, because it's so many women are doing such as only fans and things, and they're making millions of pounds. But what's interesting is these women are doing it for themselves. The fact is that today most porn, 99.999%, is made by women. For instance, webcam, they work for themselves. They use a platform, the webcam platform, but it's no different to using the phone. You know, I mean, some people argued that, the platform might be owned by men. Well, you know, it's like, well, so what? It's no different to women doing sex talk and phones, that the phone firm might be owned by men. You know, it's just a platform. The microphones they use might have been purchased from a company that the directors could be male. I mean, you know, it's sort of irrelevant. The fact is, they're in charge of their own business, and now we've got sites. I mean, there are quite a few other sites, not just OnlyFans, but it's women run. Okay, folks, so I'm going to finish there, but let's just sum a few facts up. One, I'm going to argue that 99.99% of porn now on the internet is produced by women, such as webcams, OnlyFans, etc. On top of this, even porn sites, quite a few of them are run and shot by, you know, photographs and films are run by women. So it's not this sort of male industry that the feminists will make out it is. Two, if feminists were truly into equality, they'd have to, even if it's uncomfortable, no one says they have to like it, they'd back women doing porn. Again, no one says they have to like it. They can be completely hate this stuff like I do. I hate football. It doesn't mean I then have to insist on it being banned. I mean, I consider boxing an abuse, where people are obviously getting hurt for money, but this is a free world. As long as they know the facts, that's fine. And one's intrigued why the feminists aren't having a go at women boxers who are getting the brains kicked in for entertainment. It seems to be they're more interested in controlling sexuality But anyway, this is why I dismiss them. I mean, the reality is that feminists do not want working class women earning money because they might buy a house next door to them. Fairly obvious. They hate the working class and always have. They despise and look down upon them. They think they have to speak for them. If you ever go on Twitter, they're always talking about how the vulnerable and all this, how they must speak for them. And if anyone who is working class has a voice, then they're incorrect. It's just nonsense. It's why I don't go along with the feminist argument, because they're not there for representing equality. They certainly don't represent working class women, they represent middle class women. In fact, if you ever notice what jobs are they interested in, they keep saying that they want 50% women in directorship and all this, as if that affects working class women. They never mention they want 50% mechanics. So they're the grotty jobs, they're not interested in them. It's only the fancy jobs they're interested in. They couldn't care less if women do mechanics because it's a working class position and they look down upon them. Anyway, that's me for today, folks. Not sure how this will record, but we'll have a look later. Looks like I've got to edit quite a few people out because they're walking past, so there's gaps. I don't think it gets embarrassing talking about porn when you're in the public. Alright then, fine.
It's the Smut Pod Show. The Smut Pod Show. The Smut Pod Show. Welcome to smutpod.com show.